Hi there and welcome to the Gazette's Hockey Inside Out Show. I'm Stu Count of the Gazette and I'm joined this week again by my four regular partners here, former Canadiens and 1986 Stanley Cup champions Rick Green and Chris Nyland, who is back from what I imagine was a fantastic vacation, Knuckles, in Hawaii.
Oh yeah, it was wonderful. And then come back to, I think it was like, I don't know, minus whatever when I come home, minus 10, I don't know. On Sunday when Rick left for Florida.
You guys are living right.
Yeah, I flew back and then, the snow, a lot of snow, and oh well. But it's actually pretty warm, right?
Yeah, first time in the year. Anyway. Well, yeah. 5 straight wins for the Canadiens since the Four Nations break in the schedule. This young team has made things really interesting. Within 1 point of a wild card playoff spot. And then on Tuesday, Kent Hughes signs Jake Evans to a 4-year contract extension with an annual salary cap hit, $2.85 million, which seems to work very well for both sides. Knuckles, were you surprised that Jake Evans signed before testing free agency?
I was and I wasn't. He's really tight with Gallagher. Mm-hmm. Jake Evans loves it here. He was born here, right? Like he was born a Montreal Canadien. He came to training camp out of college, and he matured as a hockey player here. And I think he really loves this city and loves the atmosphere to play in. And listen, that's important to some people. Like I said, I mentioned that the grass isn't always greener. I had an opportunity, and no offense to you, Greenie. But the grass isn't always greener on the other side. I never wanted to leave here, and I left, and the grass wasn't greener where I went. I never wanted to play anywhere else. And here's a kid who has an opportunity to make up his mind when it comes to that, and he decided to stay here. So I'm really happy. I'm happy for him. He's happy, and the organization. Certainly that number seems like a pretty fair number. Could he have gotten maybe? Over the course of the contract, a few million more probably, but no guarantees in that either.
Yeah, and the thing is, his offensive production dropped off quite dramatically after Heineman got hurt, and you have to figure his value on the free agent market might have been dropping too. And you're right, Knuckles. He has said all along he wants to stay in Montreal. He wanted security, 4 years. It's a good, significant amount of money. And you're right, he loves playing here. Rick, were you surprised at all, or did you think he might test the free agent market?
Well, they were playing the hardball game when it came down to, we're not advancing on our negotiations, and that's all part of the process. But the bottom line out of all this, I think, is like you guys touched on. He wanted to be part of the Montreal Canadiens. Always spoke highly of being part of the franchise, and you got to give him full credit. He decided to crank up that that year in his contract that's going to allow him to get that kind of money that he received, and he's deserving of it. Here's a guy that plays a role better than anybody else in the group when it comes down to killing penalties, defensive zone responsibility, face-offs, all the critical parts of the game that allow you chances to win. And he's consistently done that, and he's a good kid, and I'm happy for him, and he's deserving of it. And, that puts something to rest, because there's always kind of that uncertainty of, what your group's going to be all about when it comes down to, trade deadline. And now they can cross that off the list that he's part of the team, and they can move forward and continue to play in the ways that, allow the team to win or a chance to win every night.
Yeah, at the end of the day, on a good team, which the Canadiens are building towards becoming, I don't see Jake Evans as more than a fourth-line center, and a really good fourth-line center who's a really good penalty killer. And I don't think you can pay a guy like that more than $3 million a year. I think it's a fair contract for both sides moving forward. But you were talking, Knuckles, about guys wanting to stay here. And I wonder, how much impact do you think Marty St. has on that, with a guy like Jake Evans wanting to stay here and maybe take a little bit less money than he might have got elsewhere?
I think it all had an impact on him. The management group, everybody, just the ownership group. Obviously, he loves the city. He loves playing here. Marty probably had something to do with it because, listen, under this coach, he's had his best year of hockey. You know, the way he's used them, face-off situations, penalty killing. Him and Amia together are like unbelievable. Like on the PK, they're really playing well together. They have this thing going on between them. And, you know, 5-on-5, we saw what he's done this year too. He scored some shorthanded goals. He's 5-on-5. He's contributed to this team. So, you know, we'll see. I'm looking at this team, and they're a point out of the playoff spot. You never know, but I still don't think they're going to make the playoff.
You mentioned Armia, Knuckles. Rick, do you see any I'm wondering if Kent Hughes maybe now tries to re-sign Armia, maybe to a similar dollar value that Evans got, but maybe like 2 years rather than 4 because of the age difference. Can you see that happening?
Well, I think the discussions will be had. And, you know, when you've got something good going on like they have with their group and chemistry, and there's always that, you know, the big question mark whether or not you start upsetting the apple cart, as they say, with bringing in guys or letting guys go. And, you know, you talk about Evans. His relationship with Martin St. Louis, I think, is obvious. He really liked him. When it came down to push came to shove, I think the bottom line out of this whole thing, it's a business, dollars and cents. Where does he fit in the salary structure? And those numbers lined up to be fair on both sides. But Armia, you know, at 3.4, it's going to be interesting to see how he wants to deal with him and whether Armia really wants to be a part of what's going on, which is pretty good right now, I think. And you know, then by trading deadline, we'll see whether or not he's been moved out or discussions for extension.
Yeah, that fourth line, Knuckles, is huge, right? With Evans, Armia, and Heineman. I mean, they start most games, right? Marty puts them out to start the game to set the pace. And for Heineman, I mean, I think we realize how valuable he is after he got hurt, and the team went on a slump. Jake Evans went on an offensive slump, and Heineman's a restricted free agent this summer also. Yeah. So he's going to be looking for some money also. But that line, especially if they're, you know, in the mix and get into the playoffs, that could be their key, a really key line for them moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anytime you got listen, as a line, they'd be a great checking line, shutdown line, right? For sure. And can do that job. And then the PK end of it. But not only that, in the offensive zone, you know, when you have a guy like Heineman and you have Joel on his game and the way he plays, you know, in the corners, the way he's able to hang on to the puck, you get offensive zone time with these guys and they create some opportunities. So when you get a fourth line that can play well defensively and are smart without the puck, and then you also have a fourth line that can chip in offensively here and there, I mean, that's what you want. That's a dream line, you know. So kind of like a Gainey, Carbonneau, and Nyland line. You know what I mean?
yeah. Except those guys don't fight though.
Okay.
Chemistry is really important, and sometimes you need like a bad apple in your group to really make things work. And you know, there's a classic example with Knuckles that's completely against the grain.
You know, Rick, you were hard on Joel Armia. I was last year. I mean, he got sent down to Laval twice. This is quite a remarkable turnaround for a guy, especially at this stage in his career.
You know, it's all about performance. Like, you know, I was critical because he just wasn't performing, and rightfully so. And then he found a way to get his act going. He's following suit. And, you know, whenever you have a group of guys that are all towing the line the same way, if somebody doesn't tow it, they stand out. And I think that he's come to realize that he doesn't want to be that guy, like a number of their players. Let's get on board. Let's see what we can do as a group, and buying into what they're trying to do. And they're getting some obvious great results from a lot of guys that are playing really well. And Armia is a big, strong guy that when he decides to play, he's very effective.
Well, Knuckles, the other two key guys that can become unrestricted free agents July 1st are Tristan Dvorak and David Savard. Michael Pizzetta also is in that group, but I don't think he'll be back with Montreal next season. But Dvorak and Savard, I don't know what the market would bring for them in a trade. And you wonder at this point, as Ken Hughes has said, they have enough draft picks.
Yeah.
They're not looking for more second, third, fourth round draft picks. At this point, if they remain like 1 point behind or in a playoff spot going into Friday, I'm starting to think that maybe you're better off just keeping these two guys around and then letting them go at the end of the season if you don't re-sign them.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to get? I don't think you're going to get a player of that's really going to help your team. And if you do, you're going to get a similar player, right? And then, like you said, they get so many draft picks and so many young kids in this organization, which is a great problem to have, that you don't care about getting another draft pick, right? It's like a big deal. So, yeah, maybe they do that. If they feel that even letting go of these two guys, it would upset the apple cart, if you will, and they feel they can make this playoff run here and get into the playoffs, then yeah, they'll probably keep them and let them just walk at the end.
Yeah, and you say you get nothing in return, but you get salary cap space, right? When these guys go, Dvorak's making $4.45 million this year. Savard's making $3.5 million. If my math is good, that's like $8 million coming off the cap. If or when they do leave, so that factors in also. But I wonder with David Savard, Rick, and you've been a veteran defenseman and you've coached defensemen. Talking with Lane Hudson the other day about David Savard, and he says, I hope he stays. Like he's been like a father figure to him. I'm wondering if maybe the Canadiens take an approach with him, maybe sort of like they did with Paul Byron, and maybe sign him for one more year, and then with an offer to maybe become part of player development after that, or something along those lines. Would that make sense to you with him?
Well, I think it's really important to have a guy like that back there on the blue line, and he's proven it. A lot of guys speak highly of him. He's a guy that does a lot for the team on and off the ice, and you have to be careful that you start to move out these pieces, or you entertain the thought of somebody's going to make something really, really good. Not sure if that's going to happen, and that's not a bad thing because he's a big part of the group and a big part of the success as of late. And why not just run with the group that they have, and don't disrupt anything. They got a lot of guys that are a lot happier than what they were a month ago. So let's watch the run play out and see how far they can go, and don't disrupt the group they have to date.
Yeah, Lane Hudson spoke with me also, but like when he got called up, when he came up last year at the end of the season, he'll play a couple of games. He said like just how nice David Savard was to him and how good he was, and just taking him under his wing and really, really making him feel a part of the team. The re-signing of Evans, Knuckles, it's good for him, of course. What kind of boost does that maybe give in the locker room that Hughes has done that? Like, okay, they're not just going to get rid of everybody at the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's always. I remember when guys got moved when I was young. Like I was like, because I never, I became friends with guys, and all of a sudden they get moved, and you're like, you miss them when they leave, but you also know the business part of it. Now it's even more of a business, right, than it was back then. But yeah, it shows the guys. These guys, they're serious. They want to win. And they want to keep this group together and see what they can do. Now they got to, obviously, as a group, be accountable to one another and the coach and get the job done and get their ass in the playoffs. And yeah, but I think that certainly helps when you talk about the chemistry in the room and guys saying, "Geez, that's awesome. They signed him and he's here." And it says a lot about Evans too.
Yeah, which teammate getting traded away hurt you the most, though? Chris, or surprised you the most? Or
well, I remember me. No. I remember early on, Doug Risebrough was really good to me. Riser took me under his wing, and then he was gone. I'm like, man, I just, Rod Langway, even though Greeny came the other way, and we became great friends. It just, I was sad to see Rod go. I'm like, And so early on in my career, those things kind of hit me in a way that, I guess you wouldn't expect big, rough, tough Chris to be affected by it, but I was. And yeah, that part of it isn't fun.
How did you find out, Rick, you were getting traded to Montreal?
David Poyle had taken over the job. I never met him before other than the phone call, and he told me that, yeah, you just got traded. And I thought, oh, I wish David Poyle was the GM before, because I wouldn't have to spend the 6 years that I had to play in Washington. But I think, that happened in the offseason, unlike what you have happening at the trade deadline, where a lot of teams push for certain individuals that are going to maybe give them a little boost come playoff time versus somebody, that's going to be, say, a long-term, unless it's a big trade, unless it's going to be a guy that's going to be a long-term type player. But usually the trading deadline brings in guys that are giving them a boost for the playoff run. But it's, I like I said, when I got the call and was fortunate enough to experience one of the worst teams in the NHL and then get a promotion to go to one of the best. That's the way the business works. It definitely had nothing to do with salary. It was just a question of personnel, and thank goodness for David Poyle. And I shook his hand finally and said, thanks a lot. I really appreciate the promotion you gave me.
What's it like walking into a new locker room where you don't know guys, Rick, that first day?
Well, it is different, but it's much more refreshing knowing that you're going to a winning group versus a team that's really not going anywhere. And it really forces you to be a part of that winning culture. And that's the way you have to look at it. It is unsettling, but I said it's much easier to go and feel that you can step into an environment there where there's winners versus a lot of guys that are losers.
Did you and Rick hit it off right away on Knuckles when he came in?
Yeah, I just saw when he walked in right away. I said, "This guy was picked first overall." Whoa, no. You
said that just because you could never beat me one-on-one with your speed.
I couldn't, I never will be able to. Well, maybe.
I just go and stand in front. I just go stop in front of the net, and you would eventually tire yourself out in the corner turning circles. So it was easy for me to play against you.
Yeah, you were good just getting in the way. That's a good thing.
But you guys right away, Nichols, you guys just became buddies, I guess, and from there?
Yeah, we hit it off, and, the defensemen used to have these defenseman parties. They go together, all the D-men, and we're like, what the hell is this? They were so insecure they had to go have their own parties. They couldn't party with the forwards. But, we hit it off, Greeny and I. There were a few mornings where we cruised down Maisonneuve as Greeny would be dropping me off from various
establishments,
nightclubs or establishments. Yeah.
Dinner.
Oh yeah, we're having dinner. That's
a long dinner. So Knuckles, you were traded in season, right? How difficult is that? Like all of a sudden you got to find a place to live. You got a lot of stuff happening, right?
Yeah, it gets crazy. And when I ended up in New York, it was like I was in a hotel for a while, and then it took me a while to get my family down there. It's a mess. You gotta, so many things you gotta take care of, and you chip away and do one thing at a time, bang it out, and finally you get adjusted to the new team. But yeah, it was difficult for me. I got hurt my third game in. I hurt my knee, and it was a nightmare.
Well, I imagine that's a factor in Jake Evans signing here. He's happy in Montreal. His wife seems happy in Montreal. As you mentioned, him and Brendan Gallagher are best buddies. They carpool to practices and that. So I'm happy for Jake Evans. He was looking for some security, and this is also a good move for the Canadiens. One of those deals that works for both sides. Anyway, that's it for this week's Hockey Inside Out show. Hope you all enjoyed it. We'll be back with a new show next week. In the meantime, please make sure you like and subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out YouTube channel. Go to MontrealGazette.com/newsletters to sign up for the Hockey Inside Out newsletter. And of course, go to HockeyInsideOut.com where you get all the latest Canadiens news every day, including Friday on trade deadline day.